Today marks 1 year since the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act.
This is the first major federal climate legislation in American history. Despite its name, the Inflation Reduction Act didn't solely focus on reducing inflation. It also tackles climate-related issues.
For example, the law aims to help the U.S. cut its carbon emission by making large investments in clean energy. And the measure helps average Americans to make investments themselves by making their homes more energy efficient or easing the cost of electric vehicles.
So what has the IRA helped accomplish in its first year? That's today's Facts Are Facts. More than 100 new clean energy facilities are in the works, and subsidies from the IRA have helped those projects get into development faster. The Department of Energy has given a record-breaking number of loans to clean tech companies as well.
Yeah, and the EPA proposed a crackdown on emissions from power plants and vehicles, and tax credits for electric vehicles helped boost sales, leading to the influx of jobs and $50 billion investment in EV manufacturing here in the U.S.
So now here's the question. Was the first year of the IRA enough to help the U.S. meet our climate goals? Jeff St. John is the Director of News and Special Projects at Canary Media, joining us now to help answer that question. Jeff, thanks so much for being with us. And we do want to first kind of break down the green energy boom. How significant has that been in terms of reaching our carbon goals, which, 2030, not too far away?
That's true, and thanks very much for having me. The Inflation Reduction Act is 1 year in, and a lot of the incentives that flow from it are going to be coming in the future, but it's important to note that the investment in U.S. manufacturing that you noted is already taking place. We've got more than 100 projects, factories, facilities being put up since the law was passed. Nearly $80 billion in new investment, according to Canary Media's compilation of different data points out there. That's a pretty significant boost, driven in both by the demand for new clean energy and by portions of the tax credits and incentives that are specifically aimed at developing U.S. manufacturing capacity for these products. So that's a big one.
When you say 80 billion, is that the money that's been invested in the first year that we've seen?
That is the investment being announced in the first year.
Okay.
And investment that is rolling out over the coming years, 2024, 2026. A lot of it is in the ground. A lot of it is yet to come.
All right. So what are some of the projects that we're seeing getting the biggest boost?
Well, as you mentioned, EV manufacturing and battery manufacturing, largely driven by the demand for batteries for EVs, is a really big one. Canary Media did a tour of what we call the Battery Belt, which is a region stretching really from Michigan down to the Gulf Coast, but also primarily located in the southeast U.S., where tens of billions of dollars are being invested in battery factories and in processing and even mining the raw materials that go into those batteries.
So would you say that's going to be helping, obviously, the job market there, but, we focus sometimes on cities, how cities are developing in this, world. What about some of the rural communities?
Well, rural communities are surrounding a lot of these sites in Tennessee and in Georgia and the like. The jobs growth is pretty significant. And there are some interesting opportunities for rural communities to grow their share of clean energy. There's something called direct pay, which is a way that entities that don't pay taxes can take these tax credits that are going to support clean energy development or battery deployment and make use of them as non-taxable entities. That's useful for municipal utilities. It's useful for electric co-ops, which are the kind of community-owned and operated electric systems that operate across a lot of rural America. They can even be used by the Tennessee Valley Authority, which is the federal government-owned power generation entity throughout the Southeast.
What about nonprofits? A lot of times, these groups are kind of left out of these types of programs, but that's not what's happening with the IRA. How are they able to access some of this money?
Nonprofits can also make use of these direct pay provisions. You got to remember that tax credits started about 30% of the cost of big projects, wind, solar, biogas generation at your wastewater facilities, battery installations, and they go up. There are these things called adders. You can get 10% boost on the tax credit if you're locating in an energy community. That's a place where you have fossil fuel infrastructure, oil, natural gas, or coal, or where coal plants are shutting down. And that's going to be a major boon for large swaths of the country. There's another 10% adder for low-income communities officially designated by the federal government. And so you can get up to 50% of the cost of a project covered in tax credits. And as a nonprofit or non-tax payable entity, you can get those essentially in checks from the U.S. Treasury the year after those projects go in place.
Wow, that's crazy. And, we've been talking a lot about the advancements of electric vehicles. More and more people are buying them. You're seeing more and more roll out. And especially with the charging networks across the country. Is that part of the IRA too?
There are some benefits in the IRA. There are tax credits for EV charging infrastructure, that is the chargers and the associated equipment that goes into them. There are tax credits for commercial electric vehicles, trucks, buses, vans. There's the well-known consumer tax credit for electric vehicles, up to $7,500 for qualifying EVs that are bought new. And for the first time, up to $4,000 for used EVs, which is important for helping folks get into that secondary market and really boosting the affordability of EVs.
Well, we appreciate it. I know there's a lot of this, list we can continue to talk about. Jeff St. John from Canary Media, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.